Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Monday, the 27th of July, 2026. Hello, welcome. Well done on making it this far in the chat tonight. Today, we've got Lost Missionary, we've got Elle, we've got Martin, we've got Simon, we've got Sid in there, we've got Francis. Hello, hello, hello. If you'd like to join our friends in the friendly chat, all you need to do is press the friendly subscribe button and we'll all be ready to go. Sorry about that. I had a problem with the internet. It just wouldn't connect. At 9 o'clock, of course, at 9 o'clock. So everyone's got off their devices, and I finally got halfway decent internet. So hopefully it'll stand up for the whole show. But in the meantime, I'm going to say hello to everyone in the chat. No surprise to see the new Chancellor, who was MP for Ministry of Defence, say spending on warfare is going up while cutting welfare. It's what I said would happen when he was made Chancellor, where he was agitating for more money for defence. So and that's why he left. That's why he left us as the Secretary of State for Defence, because he wasn't getting money from the Treasury. So then he's put in charge of the Treasury, and it's like, there you go get your money, go get your money. But we'll get into that in a momento. But first of all, we're going to be talking about care, first of all, today. This is to do with Burnham's promises on social care. So I've just got to do a couple of things while I've got the internet back. Yes. He's vowed to use his political capital to fix social care system. The system of social care, I guess. He said he will use that to overhaul England's social care system. He warned that a continued failure to address care provision could cause the NHS to collapse under the pressure. Burnham also said that substantial changes were possible before the next general election, although creating a completely new system will take longer. His preferred objective is care provided on an NHS-style basis, publicly funded and available according to those in need. So you had the National Health Service, you had the National Care Service, the NCS, I guess. The government is considering accelerating Louise Casey's independent review, whose final recommendations were not originally expected until 2028. So they're hoping to get that next year. Possible early measures include additional support for short-term care after patients leave hospital. Reducing. Oh, sorry. It looked like my bloody mic had turned off then, but it hadn't. I was just looking at the wrong thing. It was covered. It was covered by a window. I just read some concerning reports that Burnham is looking at increasing the conditions required to claim sickness and disabled entitlements. If Labour does that, he will lose Labour members. Says Chrissy. Yeah, I mean, I think if anyone was going to leave Labour, they would have done it by now. So I don't think it's one of the things that I guess we've got to sort of, I don't know, get our heads around is that political parties don't really give a shit about membership. I mean, it's a nice to have, but what they care about is votes. Burnham needs to win votes, and he knows that providing care and making a care system that doesn't bankrupt people who are old and get dementia is, because it costs £112,000 a year to look after someone with dementia, and you have to pay that. You have to pay that yourself, unless you're on a death note, unless you've been given X amount of time to live. You have to pay. You have to fund that yourself. £2,000 a week. £2,000 a week. You've got to try and find that. And if Burnham can find a way to incorporate that into just the National Care Service, which I'm sure he will, he's going to have to make savings elsewhere, and whatever savings he makes, we're not going to like it. This is why I don't want to be a politician. That's exactly why I don't want to be a politician. But when it comes to membership, the people who care a lot about membership are not necessarily the parties that get the most votes. Because the way our system is, and even when it changes to PR, which I'm sure it will do in the next 5 to 10 years, the system is like not really built for fanatical fan clubs. It's built for getting the most votes out of people who have to look at the who to vote for and go, well, they're doing a good job. And if Labour continue on the route of not particularly getting a lot of, let's say, value for money for the taxpayer, is that what they'd call it? I don't know. We're going to see a lot of we're going to see a lot of people not vote for Labour in the next election, and they'll lose. They might even lose to a coalition of refuck and the Tories, which would be absolutely horrific because they'll take us out of the European Convention on Human Rights. Dropping out for a few minutes. Oh, sorry, I thought you meant I was dropping out to proofread an email. All right, thanks for that, Martin. Burnham has to be less hard on the disabled if he wants their votes. Don't listen to McFadden. He does not understand disability, says Peter Paint a lot. Yeah. Although, look, okay, I want to talk about something because I called if I wanted to get some free stuff from the government because I'm diagnosed with ADHD. And I think that's a bit shit, to be honest with you, because I don't really need the free stuff because it's a spectrum. It's people whose ADHD means they can't deal with everyday life, and they need support more than I do. I think that ADHD is overdiagnosed. I think there's loads of videos which fuck me off on the internet at the moment saying, do you sometimes go to a party and you're happy and you have a life and soul, and then other times you're quiet and you just sit in the corner watching people? Yes. Oh, good. Congratulations, you've got ADHD. No, you haven't. No, you're just a human being. Stop coming out with Barnum statements. They did the survey and they found that 50% of the stuff said about ADHD is just absolute bollocks on the internet. I saw one where this guy was saying that if you're ADHD, you're good at spotting idiots. I'm like, what? Okay. Yeah, and it's this thing of like, if someone is diagnosed with ADHD, they go, oh yeah, well, my symptoms, the things that I use to identify, not even symptoms, but like, my personality quirks, that must be for everyone who has this thing. And so my point I'm trying to make here, in a roundabout way, is I don't think that I should get money off the government to buy a new chair or whatever, because I'm diagnosed with ADHD. But I do think that Catherine, my partner, who's deaf, should get top of the range hearing aids so she can do her job. And for many years, that wasn't possible on the NHS. The hearing aids on the NHS were not Bluetooth. They were not digital. They couldn't send signals that you could hear from the higher end of the audio spectrum to the lower end. They couldn't do all that stuff. They were basically loudspeakers in your ears. You just put them in and they just amplified whatever sound there was. They could tune in to the cinema when you were using a deaf loop, and it was shit. I mean, it was just like static. It was like not great. And now finally the NHS are bringing in hearing aids that actually have Bluetooth capability. Like the earbuds that you buy off the internet for 15 quid. Yeah, like that, but a bit more techie. And I think that I'd much rather the money went there instead. When we talk about young people out of work, and this is what they're talking about this morning. Yeah, if you're not prepared to go into education, training, or employment after 6 months, we've got to draw the line somewhere. Where do you want to draw the line? Do you want to make it a year? Do you want to make it 3 years? Do you want to make it unlimited? I mean, these are questions that we need to discuss. But yeah, is the measures that are being proposed, like early measures, include additional support for short-term care after patients leave hospital, reducing delayed discharges, and also because at the moment, people are staying in hospital after procedures being done or after treatment's been given because they can't go home because they need someone to care for them for a few days, and so that care is done in the hospital when it could be done at home. But that infringes on the private companies that make a fuckload of money out of taking care of people. And he, Burnham's interest in this, in overhauling the care system, is informed by the fact that his dad, like my dad, has got dementia, and it's horrible. It's just absolutely horrible. And the system is just not set up for it. And we're going to be seeing much more of this because people aren't dying of other stuff. even cancer rates. I mean, yeah, even just 20 years ago, certain cancers were like a death sentence, and they're not anymore. People are living with cancer. People are going into remission. People are having immunotherapy, and there are breakthroughs in certain types of cancer, which means that people are either getting cured or just not dying at the rate that people were not even at the turn of the millennium. I mean, this isn't even that far in the distant past, and so chronic problems like dementia, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, things like that are going to be what is eventually taking people out. Um, but yeah, the he rejected the Burnham rejected the Conservatives' demand that cross-party reform must involve no additional taxation, arguing that meaningful change cannot be agreed under predetermined financial restrictions. And he's right about that. We will have to put taxes up, but we have to be clever about it. Now, I think all in all, Keir Starmer was quite clever about the way he taxed rich people. He taxed private schools. You can't move the private school. You can't, send your kid to Harrow in China. I don't know. Maybe Harrow have got like an outlet of Harrow in China, like a designer outlet village of Harrows or Eatons or Winchesters. But I don't think that the level of education might be just as good, but the contacts you make is that it aren't going to be quite as good as if you go to actual Harrow or actual Eton or actual Winchester or Westminster. So I think that that was quite canny, putting putting that onto um, onto schools, onto private schools, and then the other way of getting at rich people is making sure they pay their fair share of inheritance tax. So a massive loophole which was being exploited by the privately educated likes of Jeremy Clarkson and who's that gobshite? Jeremy Dyson. Jeremy Dyson? Is that his name? I don't know. The guy who owns the Dyson Empire. They both bought vast swathes of land so that they could avoid their kids having to pay inheritance tax. It was a loophole. So the Labour Party closed that loophole. I'm hoping that Andy Burnham is going to do something about capital gains. I don't understand why capital gains aren't taxed at the same rate as income tax. So if you uh, if you earn £13,000 from capital gains, you don't have to pay any tax on it. You earn 50,000, you have to pay a certain rate. You earn 100,000, you've got to pay a higher rate, and it goes up and up. At the end where you're earning millions and millions and millions of pounds, yeah, you should have to pay 60% fucking tax on it. Fuck off. And that'll be a way of making it so people who are the upper echelons, the rich private school mafia of the country have to pay more to, well, no, actually not more, their fair share towards a society which made them rich. I hate all these people who go, oh, the self-made millionaire, self-made billionaire. No, you're not. If you weren't born in Britain, you'd be fucked. If you were born in Malawi, if you were born in Zambia, if you were born in, I don't know, Namibia, you wouldn't be a billionaire. Piss off. Just no, you wouldn't. James Dyson, that was it. Not Jeremy Dyson. He's in the League of Gentlemen, isn't he, Jeremy Dyson? I'm sorry, but capital gains should be taxed at a higher rate than earned income. Well, Chris, can we just get it parity at the moment? Because it's 25% on capital gains and it's 40% on earned income. So, like, can we just get parity? That's the first thing I'd like. PIP is given for limitations to specific functioning regardless of diagnosis. You cannot say, I've got this diagnosis, give me some money. It doesn't work like that, says Peter Paint a lot. No, but I can apply because I've got an ADHD diagnosis, I can apply for things that will make my life, I don't know, easier, like a comfy chair or something. I can apply for that. I haven't. I probably won't. I mean, I'm all right. I've got a chair here. It's okay. Let's sit on it. But I'd rather that if the government's going to be giving out free chairs, I'd rather it gave it to someone with sciatica. I'd rather it gave it to someone who's got real, actual, back pain, crippling back pain. I mean, yeah, you have that. I don't feel like I need it at the moment, to focus my mind. I don't know. But yes, Starmer said that Labour must reduce welfare spending through better employment opportunities, which makes sense because this is Labour. They are the party of the workers, they're not the party of the right on necessarily. I mean, that's what the pot. That's the picture that's painted of them by the media. Like, oh, you're so right on. You just want to, give free money to everyone. And the reality, the history of Labour is, and as I keep labouring this point, see what I did there, is that Labour never really been the party of being nice and helping everyone. They have been the party in the past that have been in charge when horrible things have happened and they've messed up, and bad things have happened. And you think, why is Labour doing that? Don't forget, it was Labour who brought in student bloody fees. Graham, you haven't set a super chat goal. Oh, okay. Thank you for reminding me. I'll do that now. I'll do quite a short show today because we've got to check out and I've got to pack all my stuff together and get back to Durham. So I will. What will we do with it? Confetti. What kind of confetti? I don't know. Any kind of confetti. You can have confetti. I'll put a bin in there as well. So yes. So he said that Labour must reduce welfare spending through better employment opportunities, stronger mental health provision, which I completely agree with. I think there's a lot of people who are out of work at the moment because of their mental health, and I'm not having a go. I'm not saying that like, oh, how dare you take time off work? But one of the reasons why they're taking so long off work is they're not getting the support. You're having to wait for years to get a diagnosis of ADHD or autism or anything really, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, anxiety. It takes a long time. It takes a very long time, and a lot of these diagnoses aren't entirely accurate because they're just done so fast. If you've, I got my ADHD diagnosis. So 2 years, I think I was waiting for it. 2 years, and then it was another year after the diagnosis that I actually got any medication for it, which I don't know. I mean, maybe this is just me, but it just doesn't seem to have. It doesn't feel like it really touches the sides. It's not. It's not really changed the way my brain works. I don't think. I don't know, but I do feel there is overdiagnosis. Oh, hang on a sec. Well, 1 second, my friends. I'll be back in a moment. Hello, I'm back. Sorry about that. It was the guy. There's a hot tub outside, and he's gonna give it a deep clean. And he's like, "You're not gonna use this today." He's standing there with like a packet of caustic soda. I'm like, "No, I'm not getting it today, mate. It's all right." Hello, welcome back to the show. Sorry about that. I'm Graham Hughes. Welcome to Morning Brew on Hughes of the World. Good to have you on board. So yeah, we were talking about, and it was this Alan Barker. Initially, the idea behind student fees seemed like a good idea. Low interest, pay only when you can afford it, but it was the thin end of the wedge, and it's probably too late to change now. Says Alan Barker. Yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate. Edge of the thin end of the wedge, and that's what people said at the time. That's what people said back in 1997. I remember I was there. I was still in university. I was very lucky that I started in '97. If I started a year later, I would have had to pay tuition fees. Um, I was still at a time when you could get a grant to go to university, and this is something that just doesn't exist anymore. And Labour set a target of 50% of your all school leavers going to university, which we achieved a few years ago, which is great. But at the same time, we have a huge problem because the other stuff that needed to be done hasn't been done. And this happens all the time with politics. You think about like, okay, we needed 50% of people who left school to be doing then training, be doing apprenticeships, etc. And that was just there wasn't the facilities there. There wasn't the academy, not the academies. What's the word for it? There wasn't the institutions set up for people to do this, for young people to do this. In the same way that when Thatcher sold off the council houses, there was nothing to replace them. Councils did not build council houses anymore. They just stopped in the 90s. They stopped building council houses because it was just too goddamn profitable for various people who were just at the right age at that time to just go and buy loads more houses and put students in there and then charge them an absolute fortune for being alive. Pensions is a population issue, not just an inflation uplift issue. But here's the thing, Kimberly, like, I don't, when we talk about productivity, like, people today are being so much more productive than we were 30 years ago, 40 years ago. You think about this, like, remember when you used to go to the bank? Do you remember going to the bank? You don't need to now. You got an app on your phone. Do you remember when you used to go to the bank? Like, you would spend, hours in the bank. You'd have to find somewhere to park. Good luck with that. Then you'd walk to the bank and you'd stand there in a bloody queue. And of course, the person in front of you always wants, it was the guy from the penny arcade wanted all these pennies counting out or something, or someone wanted to negotiate a mortgage at the counter, and then you finally get, and you'd have to write stuff, you'd have to do checks, you'd have to sign things, you'd have to hand things over, to check your signature against, and all this, and the amount of time. Post office going to the post. Do you remember queuing up at the post office? And they used to have that stupid system before they put the barrier in. They used to have like 4 windows at the post office and at the counter. And you'd just pick one. And it wouldn't necessarily be the fastest one. It was like, oh my God, really? This is the way you want to do it? Okay. Funnily enough, the border post in Sixaola, when you're going from Costa Rica into Panama, they use the same system where they've got like 4 windows and you just queue at a window and there's like long queue. It's not like a barrier where you all queue behind the barrier and you go to the window that's available. No, that'd be far too sensible. But yeah, people used to spend so much time doing this stuff, like doing just the everyday stuff that now is instantaneous. And if you ran your own business, you would have to take time because it was, going to the bank or going to the post office. It was only during working hours. So either you didn't have your lunch because you spent your lunchtime at the bank, or sometimes some banks bloody closed for lunch, so you couldn't even go at lunch, and you had to take time off during business hours to go and do this shit that you can now do on your phone instantaneously. And like, I just think we are so much more productive. The amount of stuff that we can get done now, especially let's face it, with the advent of AI, think about minutes for meetings and things like that. No one needs to type that up anymore. You just press a button, it's there. There you go. Here's all the stuff you just talked about. I was listening, says Zoom. And yeah, just this whole thing is like, we're so much more productive. You look at productivity per person, it's gone through the roof since the 70s. And because of computers, because of the internet, and now because of AI. And yet wages have gone down in real terms. Wages have gone down in real terms. They're not as high as they were back then. And yeah, these people going on about, we only got, I worked all week and only got like £12.50. I'm like, yeah, but £12.50 could have bought you a bloody week's holiday in Marbella. It's like, and then the stuff, one of the things that I think confuses older people in particular, not all old people, but some old people, is that a lot of the things that were luxuries are not luxuries anymore. So a big telly is a really good example. If you wanted to buy a big fuck off telly back in the day, it would have cost you well over £1,000. Well over £1,000. A big CRT television, get lost. It's going to cost you loads and loads and loads of money. A VCR, I mean, it costs you loads of money. Why? Because it had loads of moving parts in it. They're quite complex things. And then as technology moved on, as it ticked on, things like CD players, DVD players, they're getting cheaper and cheaper. Like DVD players when they first came out were a few £1,000s. But the reality is they've got one moving part in it, which is the laser that moves back and forth along the disc. And that's it. It's got a microchip. It's got a motherboard with microchips. So it can read the data and it just spits it out into, some kind of a format that the TV can understand. And then flat screen TVs are a lot cheaper to make than CRT televisions because the processing is, the manufacture of them is a lot cheaper. It's a fraction of the cost. The manufacturing cars now, it's a lot cheaper than it used to be. The materials used, they recycle a lot of stuff. The costs are not as vast as they used to be when every single car was basically handmade, on the production line, but it was handmade. Now our cars are mostly made by machines and it's just, bolting it together essentially. And so the productivity's gone up. what used to be luxury goods have come down in cost of making them, and then this is why the older people, they go mad when some bought a coffee machine or something. It's like, yeah, but they cost peanuts now. It's like 50 quid for a coffee machine. That back in the 90s, if you wanted that same kind of thing, it would be 750 quid. It would be back then. I mean, the Commodore Amiga, when I got my Amiga in 1990 or 1991. I mean, that was my Christmas birthday. I think it was two Christmases and two birthdays presents worth, because it was 400 quid. It's 400 quid for an Amiga 500 plus. 400 quid. And then you spend that on a console. Now you'd be like, bloody hell, 400 quid for a console. I remember buying like Game Boy games back in the day for 30 quid. 30 quid in the 90s for a console game. CDs back in the 90s were, if they weren't on offer, they were $16.99. Wasn't that the price, or was it $15.99? It was like 16 or 17 quid, right, for these discs. That was the standard price for them. Now, if you went into a shop and they wanted like 20 quid for a CD, you're like, 20 quid for what? 10 songs? Piss off. Everything's got cheaper. Everything has got cheaper, pretty much, and productivity's gone up, and yet we are poorer than ever. How does that work? Well, because of greed, because some people have gone, I'm going to take as much as possible, and the trickle-down thing has just not worked. And Andy Burnham's got to be really, really careful here, because we don't want him going after the wrong people. We don't want him going after people who are, really, really suffering right now. And one of the things that he's talked about is this idea of getting people back into work, and people can still get PIP whether they work or not. A lot of people on PIP are actually working and are given reasonable adjustments to accommodate that, whatever it is that is making it difficult for their everyday life to just go ahead as normal, And Burnham has confirmed that the government has remained committed. His government remains committed to Labour's manifesto and fiscal rules and manifesto of 2024, but he is considering longer term changes to council tax bans. I'd like to see him change council tax. I know it's something that he wants to do, and in the back of his mind, he wants to bring in a land value tax, which isn't perfect. No system is, but it's better than the regressive rate of council tax that we all pay. I saw a map the other day of, like, if we brought in land value tax, how much our tax, council tax, local tax, would go up or down. And everywhere in the north it went down. Like, everywhere in the north, it went down, and everywhere in the south it went up. Southeast it went up. And I was like, yeah, fine, do it. Just freaking do it. Encourage people out of the centre. Encourage people out of London. Do it. Kimberly, fair point. And while earned income should rightly be taxed, I think unearned income should be taxed at the same rate or higher. Yeah. At least let's get it to the same. Let's get it to the same tax. And this is going to be the problem of the whole of Burnham's reign as Prime Minister, as long as or as short as it might be, is that he is going to be attacked by people on the left and the right for saying, not for where he gets the money from for doing this stuff, and that it doesn't go far enough. And it's again why I'm not a politician. I don't have to like to deal with this stuff. I like to just go off on one about certain things I care about, and leave all the rest to whatever. Which is funny, because there's a few political parties that are a bit like that. Here's the thing that we care about. Well, what about all this other stuff? Oh, shit. Do we have to make decisions on that? Kimberly says, because we have less money and skint governments who are griping at the pensioners, as we are all skint, instead of taxing the balls off the super wealthy and the core, tax wealth, not workers. You know what, Kimberly, though? I mean, the problem is that if you tax wealth, if it's not bricks and mortar, if it's not the soil, the land, that money will move. This is why billionaires are investing in cryptocurrency so much, because it's an easy way of them to just offload loads of money and not have to pay tax on it, and take it off to another jurisdiction where they don't have to pay tax. The Bermuda doesn't have to pay any income tax, and these companies that own these newspapers don't pay any income tax. These big companies like Starbucks, they don't pay any the corporation tax that they're supposed to pay. And then they go, but we create jobs. We create jobs. Yeah. So the people working have to create. The people working have to create the value for the society. Whereas these leechers, these big companies are just taking. They just take, and no give. I'm not targeting pensions. However, when your pensioners are worth 1 million plus, how is it fair that the current working generations are paying for those pensioners to get state pension? Yeah, I agree, Chris. I do think, and we talked about this before on this channel. I do think that pensions need to be means tested, like they are in Australia. Get them all excited. Say we're going to bring in the Australian system, and they'll think, "Oh, the Australian system. Well, we're going to send all the boat people off to Nauru. Are we going to have a points system for people coming here? No, we're going to means test pensions. And if your wealth is more than £1 million, no, you can't have a state pension. 55% of our current benefit payouts by the government go to pensions. And if a quarter of those pensions are not necessary and not needed, the pension is there to try and keep people alive. That was the original plan, because old people were dying, right? Old people were just dying left, right, and centre because they didn't have money and they couldn't keep warm and they didn't have enough food. Now it's keeping pensioners so that they can enjoy their later years and go on cruises and do all this kind of stuff. Okay, fine. If you got a private pension, you saved up, or you made some canny real estate investments, fine. Spend that money. I don't care, but don't take it off the government. Don't take it off the workers who are working now, and then berate the workers for what? I don't know. We're not working hard enough or something. So yeah, it is a bit of a worry where Burnham is going to go after, to get people, to get this money saved off benefits. I would prefer him to go not after pensioners. That's a bad way of putting it, but you know what I mean. Look at the pension pot and say, hang on, this is the pension cost. It's not a pot. The pension cost, and go, this is a bit too much. Let's get rid of the triple lock and let's means test this motherfucker. I'd like to see that. I'd also, I don't have too much of a problem if there is resources there for people to get back into work, to get into training, to get into education, young people. Then I'm not too against not just the carrot, but also a bit of stick for some people who are just happy to not work. But I don't think that should be something that should be put into place until there are the places that people can go to and get that education, get that training, get that work. If those places don't exist, then it is just cruel and unfair to say to young people, you've got to get a job in 6 months or you're not getting any more dole. And then like, oh, but there are no jobs. Okay, we're getting to education, but there's nowhere I can go. That is a balancing act. But don't forget, Labour is the party of the labourers. It's the party of the working people, apparently. Pensioners get their way because they vote. If students vote in the same manner, there will not be such debt on their education vote or be persecuted, in my opinion. Yeah, that's a good point, Captain Coconut. Pity Cake Machine, perhaps increase minimum wages to allow workers to be able to afford to live without requiring universal credit. Yeah, I mean, these companies that are paying people too little to live on, and so they're having to prop up their wages with money from the government, which is our money, taxpayers' money, is ridiculous. Why are you subsidising these big supermarkets? And I think the triple lock is fair, is what I'm saying. You rarely see wages increase more than inflation, so why should the state pension be guaranteed to rise by 2.5% a year? Yeah, I know. There was a time when the state pension was a bit shit in this country, and it's not anymore. So, the triple lock was bribed by the Tories in 2011. It's a new thing. It's not well established. Yeah. And Gallifreyan Man, because I've voted and been overruled by the majority every time, and I get have persecution as a bonus, says Gallifreyan Man. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, you're right. I mean, I've changed my mind about compulsory voting. My take on it was like, well, what's the point? Because they have it in Australia, and the Tories still get in. But it would mean that young people have more a force to take more of an interest in politics, and therefore hopefully more policies that help young people instead of what we have at the moment, which is a geriatricocracy, where we do everything in our power to keep the old retired elites, money men, money women, billionaires in their life to which they have become accustomed. This is like, when you hear stories about divorced couples and the guy was a multi-millionaire before he met his wife, and they got married, and then they broke up, and then there's a what's the word for it? There's an obligation on the husband, or sometimes the wife, it depends, who the main breadwinner was in the family, to keep their former spouse in the life to which they have become accustomed. So it's not enough. This happens a lot in America. It's not enough just to pay for the kids and stuff like that. You've got to, if you've been buying diamond rings every week for your wife, then you've got to keep buying them diamond rings. I know it's not quite this simple, but I feel like we're a bit like that with the young people and the older people. We've got to keep older people who are already millionaires in the life to which they have become accustomed. And you've got people now who are probably in their 80s who, they took their early retirement in their 50s. They haven't worked for 30 years. And they're on this final salary pension, which they'll be paid for the rest of their lives. They might last another 10, 15, 20 years, for God's sake. And they're getting the state pension. And they're living a bloody life of Riley. They haven't worked for 30 years. In fact, some people, I think the amount of time they've not worked is out. Yeah, would have done, because they wouldn't have worked for the first sort of 16 years of their life. Yeah, so the time in their life they've not worked has outweighed the time in their life that they've worked. And they didn't bring that much value to society, because people take out more from pensions than they put into their pot for their pension pot. If we want to go down that route, and pensioners do, where they go, I paid into a pension pot. Okay, well, how much did you pay? Oh, £500 a month, a year. Okay, right, you can have £500 a year then back. There you go, there's your pension pot. If they want to look at it that way, but that's not the way it works. Sid has been a member for 9 months. Thank you, Lone Star Sid. That is awesome. Thank you for being a member. The super chats are open. I know this isn't a very sexy subject that we're talking about this morning, so usually when I talk about Farage, it's not a very sexy subject, is it? But at least we get super chats in, because I just go, Farage is a gobshite, and people go, yes, he is, and give me money. Student debt was accountancy trick to turn spending into assets and sell it so it doesn't appear in the deficit. It's never getting paid off, and it shouldn't be. Alimony is an American concept. I think in the UK, spousal maintenance is quite limited outside special circumstances, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, I think so, Draney. I've never been married, never been divorced, so I don't really know too much about it. But I think there's an American thing where if you have lived a certain life, up in the hills of Beverly Hills, and you get divorced, then yeah, there is an argument that this is the life that the wife usually has become accustomed to, and you have to pay to maintain that. I think for the rest of the wife's life. I don't know. I don't know how it works in the States. It's a crazy time. But I feel like we're doing that with pensioners. We're paying for pensioners who don't need this money to have extra money to keep them in the lifestyle that they're accustomed to. Whereas pensions was originally invented to stop people from literally freaking dying. That was the whole point. Garage is a fob shite. He is. The top tax rate is 45% when it should be at least 75% on assets over 5 million. Well, it used to be 95% on mega assets, wasn't it? Oh, sorry, on assets, on income. For 95% at one point. Elle says, my stepdad was a multimillionaire. Blair taxed him $800,000 for not spending to put it back into the economy. He could spend it or lose it. He was taxed 50%. It's doable. Has this stopped? If so, why? Yeah, it has, because the Tories get in and they look after the interests of the rich and the elderly. They are the party of the rich and the elderly. Like, this is why young conservatives are so weird. You're like, but you're not elderly. Yeah, but I'm very rich. But yeah, let's talk about Refuck for a moment. Let's have a laugh at Farage because he's an idiot. So Refuck's new policy thing is they want to charge employers an annual levy for every worker without a British passport. Irish citizens will be exempt, but the policy will cover EU nationals who already possess settled status. So after all the stuff that we've put EU nationals through over the last 10, 50, 10, 11, 12 years through Brexit and everything, we're now going to say, oh, we're going to put make it so that employers don't want to employ you because you cost too much. For the same reason that I can't really work in Europe anymore as a presenter because I cost too much. I've got to have things done, which includes getting a visa, get the work permit, all that kind of stuff. A lot of paperwork. They can't be asked with that. Why would an employer employ me when they can employ someone from Ireland or someone who's British with an Irish passport? For now, well, not now. You just have to pay them, but you don't have to do so much paperwork. 100% death tax, no gifting of assets prior to death. Full stop. Says Lost Missionary. Yeah, 100% inheritance tax. I think that'll sort the men out from the boys. Refuck our policies. Yeah, they're gonna make it so that if you employ any EU nationals, you have to pay more. Employers would also pay a higher rate of national insurance for the affected staff. Refuck has indicated that lower paid overseas workers attract a larger charge, so that's your care sector. So you've got Burnham saying we need to do something about care. We need to look into care. The system we have at the moment is fucked, and we need to do something about it. And at the same time, you've got Refuck saying, okay, these care workers that we've got coming from the Indian subcontinent, coming from sub-Saharan Africa. Well, we'll tax them more. We'll tax their employers more. And you're like, what? Why? No exceptions are planned for sectors experiencing domestic recruitment shortages. And the King's Fund said that the proposal would add costs to the NHS already operating under severe financial pressure. Because don't forget, everyone who's working in the NHS who doesn't have a British passport, which is over 50% of the people working for the NHS, it would cost the NHS more to pay them. Not that they'll get any extra money. But one of the things that Refuck want to do is to bankrupt the NHS and say, oh, it's not working, oh, what a shame. Like what we did with British Rail in the 1980s. Oh, it's not working, it's a shame, let's privatise it. General practices could be particularly exposed because many operate as small independent businesses who are contracted by the NHS. Care home providers warn they could not absorb the charge, potentially reducing available services or forcing companies to close. Overseas teachers are concentrated in secondary schools where recruitment is difficult, including for physics and modern languages in particular. Universities facing existing deficits could be pushed into further financial difficulty because of staffing accounts for much of their expenditure. Science organisations said the measure would further increase the cost of recruiting international researchers. And, this is an article about it in The Guardian, and the Refuck won't even answer The Guardian's question. And basically, this is a policy that is designed to attract people who haven't fucking worked, lazy bastards sitting on their arse for years and years and years at the end of their, working life at the age of like 55 when they took early retirement, sitting there going, oh, these people working, I want them taxed more. This is the problem. There's a lot of people, a lot of older people who are just, not all of them, obviously, clearly, but some of them, just fucking sadists, just absolute sadists, little entitled little shits who were just running around going, well, I had it all right. I had to work hard. I had to go without it. I had to go without. I know you didn't. Your life got better and better. You look at the boomer's life and the things that changed. Like when a boomer was born in the 40s or 50s, there were no people didn't have fridges. The food rotted in the summer. They didn't have TVs. They didn't have games consoles. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have computers. They didn't have, there was so much stuff they didn't, and everything that they did have back then, that was pretty good. Like the public transport, they've taken that away. They've taken that away, and they go, oh, we had it so hard. Throughout their life, things have got better. If you were born in the 50s, every year throughout your life, things have got incrementally better. Even now, things are still getting better for older people. Whereas for the rest of us, people who were born in the 80s, people who were born in the 90s, it's fucking hell. Things have got incrementally worse every year. Look at climate change. Look at the Anyway, so meanwhile, Heathrow expansion. We've got some news on this. Regional employment. The new Economics Foundation analysis of the Department for Transport Modelling suggests that a third Heathrow runway would transfer aviation activity from regional airports to London. Birmingham Airport is forecast to handle substantially fewer passengers than it otherwise would, affecting employment throughout the airport. Other regional airports and existing airports in the southeast could also lose future jobs to Heathrow, which is crazy. I mean, they're building this extra runway so that they can increase capacity at Heathrow. Going, if you build it, they will come. People will take planes. But the reality is, they've looked into this and they said, well, actually, no, all it's going to do is take traffic away from other hubs around the country, which might be easier to get to for people living, I don't know, in Birmingham or in Newcastle or in Liverpool or Manchester. We're going to see jobs going from there. And the proposed runway is going to cross the current route of the M25. I mean, that's going to be crazy. They're going to reroute the whole M25. The whole thing is going to cost an absolute bloody fortune. And then you've got the significant health and environmental effects for communities that's around the airport. I mean, it's honestly the craziest place they could possibly put an airport, to the west of one of the biggest cities in the world. Like, why have you put it there? Why not put it over the coast? They put it next to. I know Boris Johnson was a dickhead, but was it Boris Island? He wanted to make an airport on the east side of London. That would make so much more sense. You come in over the water. There's any problems, you crash into the water, and it's sad for the people on board, obviously. But then you start hitting a bunch of houses in fucking Hounslow, they start flying over people's homes at 6 o'clock in the morning, waking them up with the windows all rattling because the jet engines are so bloody loud. Yeah. Oh, my blood pressure has exploded at Daily Mail's headline that the state's teenagers with anxiety on welfare get more than a full-time working teenager. Yeah, it's just bullshit, isn't it? Pagan, by spending that money, you would improve things for all, not scribble away for the privileged few. Yeah. So listen, I'm gonna have to wrap up in a few minutes' time. I don't have much time this morning because I've got to get packed up and get going. So I might change the goal because it doesn't look like we're gonna get anything in this morning. Oh, hang on, just as I say that, Cathal drops a €5 super chat in. Thank you, Cathal. You've given me hope. Hope to linger on for a few more moments. Thank you. Morning all. Super excited about Liverpool tomorrow. Quirky Quarter, Sefton Park, Anfield, Goodison, Hill Dickinson, Cavern Club. Excellent. That sounds like a good use of your time. If you're into football, Anfield, Goodison, Hill Dickinson, Sefton Park, absolutely worth checking out. And as you're down at Sefton Park, Penny Lane's not far away. If you want to have a walk down Penny Lane and go to the Dovedale Towers, which is the old drinking pit of the Beatles when they were kids, it's well worth checking that out as well. And also, Cathal, I can really recommend, if you like live music, you like music at all, the Jacaranda on Slater Street. I really recommend it. I don't know if you're taking kids, aren't you? Yeah, that's the. I mean, it's there's a few places that claim to be the first place that the Beatles ever played, and the Jacaranda's got the excuse of saying they are the first place where the Beatles played as the Beatles, not as the Quarrymen or the Silver Beatles, but actually as the Beatles. And also it was owned by Alan Williams, who was at the time the manager of the Beatles, famously the guy who gave the Beatles away. Drainy, thank you very much, Drainy1986, for the £2 super chat. That's really cool. Cheers for that. 3 more super chats and we will hit the target before I go. Oh wow, the Daily Mail do BS. In the article they clarify that a teenager on welfare gets £100 more a year than a teenager in full-time employment. That's just got to be bollocks. That's just got to be absolute bloody bollocks. Can't have an airport in the estuary due to the SS Montgomery, says Graham Haller. Is it what is that, the SS Richard? Is that the Richard Montgomery? Is that what it's called? Is that the one that's going to blow up at some point because it's full of munitions and stuff? Is that the Richard Montgomery? I'm going to look this up now. Richard Montgomery, SS Richard Montgomery. Yes, it is. Yes, it's a ship full of 1,400 tons of explosives. And the likelihood of explosion is variously assessed to be low to moderate, but if it blows up, it's going to be like a 50-foot wave to smashing into Kent, which I shouldn't laugh about, but it could be the biggest peacetime explosion, non-nuclear peacetime explosion. Basically, what happened in what happened in Beirut a few years ago with the fertilizer blowing up. It's going to be that, but even fucking worse. And it's going to be at sea, so there's going to create a massive tsunami. I grew up on Sheppey expecting to be drowned by that boat any second, lol. The SS Richard Montgomery. Good old Monty there, lurking. But the masts are going to fall off, aren't they? And they've spent like 10 years going, how do you get these masts? Because the masts crash into the rest of the ship, then there's a chance that the ship could explode. So they've employed, I think, an American company to come. I don't know why I know so much about the SS Richard Montgomery, but I think they've got like an American company to come and cut the masts down. Thanks, Graham. Bringing the kids, but have some babysitting. Oh, cool. Well, yeah, Jacaranda. Well, we're checking out. They've got a record shop upstairs, and downstairs they have live music every night, pretty much. And there's some artwork that was done on the wall by John Lennon and Stuart Sutcliffe, who was one of the original members of the Beatles, who sadly passed away in the early 60s at quite a young age. I think he had a brain aneurysm. Okay, so we've got the findings about Heathrow. This creates a challenge, political test, because he promised to redirect infrastructure investment away from London and the southeast. Is he gonna, pivot and say, listen, we're not going to build this runway? I think we should have a quick rail link between Liverpool John Lennon Airport and Manchester Airport. I think that there should be a quick rail link between those two, but there isn't. In fact, there isn't a rail link going to Liverpool Airport, which is just, to me, is just bonkers. It's not the craziest thing I could possibly think. We've got Liverpool Airport and there's no rail link going to it. There could be. I mean, the main rail line is not that far away, and a lot of the area that you'd have to use to get to the airport using a new spur, which it essentially would be, of the railway. I mean, a lot of that, it was industrial land. Unfortunately, it's kind of been built on now, so I don't know how they'll do it, but yeah, where there's a will, there's a way. Anyway, so relatives of the personnel killed in the 1994 Muller Chinook crash have asked Burnham to help establish not to help, but to do it, to establish an independent review. The helicopter was travelling to Northern Ireland when it crashed, killing all 29 people on board. The two pilots were originally blamed, but were formally cleared during a government review in 2011. That process did not find a definitive cause, and because of Burnham's record with Hillsborough, the families are asking him to look at that. Blah CW, didn't a similar thing happen in Halifax, Nova Scotia? Yes, it did in about I think it was during the war, maybe the First World War, so 1916 or 1917, something like that. There was a huge explosion. It was one of the biggest peacetime, well, not peacetime, but the biggest. It might have been peacetime, it not been during the. It was over 100 years ago, whenever it happened. But yeah, it killed thousands of people because it blew up in the sea, and it was a massive explosion. And they have a memorial in Halifax for the people who died in that. I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna look up the facts. Here's the facts. Halifax explosion. Wow. 1,782 people were confirmed killed by the explosion. It was in 1917, so it was during World War One. I was right. But yeah, the morning of 6th December 1917, the SS Mont Blanc and the Norwegian vessel SS Imo collided in the harbour of Halifax, Nova Scotia. Laden with high explosives, Mont Blanc caught fire and detonated, devastating the Richmond district of Halifax. Wow. There was fires, collapsed buildings. Around 9,000 people were injured, on top of the 1,700 people who were killed. Yeah, so let's hope that doesn't blow up in the water in the SS, the SS Richard Montgomery there off the coast of Kent, I think. Oh, thanks for today's show, Graham. Oh, thank you for coming along, Rosie. That is very kind of you, and thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate that. That's very kind. Thank you. We get one more super chat, and I'll set off the Bin Feffy, because we need to do the Bin Feffy while it's, Bin Face is in the news, I think. If he wins, I mean, we can have Bin Feffy all day. So yeah, the Ministry of Defence expressed sympathy and said ministers will continue to engaging with relatives, but did not commit to another inquiry into the Chinook helicopter crash. Meanwhile, Palestine Action activists could be sentenced under terrorism rules. I think Chris C posted something about this in the chat earlier. 5 activists were convicted of criminal damage following a protest at Barclays branch in Burnley in August 2024. Windows were broken and red paint was sprayed during an action concerning the bank's links with Israeli weapons manufacturer Elbit Systems. The judge is now considering whether the crimes had a terrorist connection or not. Meanwhile, oil prices and UK interest rates, economists have warned that a prolonged increase in energy prices could force the Bank of England to reconsider its inflation forecast. Renewed fighting between the US and Iran drove Brent crude over $100 last weekend. And then, meanwhile, talking of that, the US and Iran have paused attacks. The US and Iran have refrained from launching attacks against each other over the weekend after nearly 2 weeks of renewed fighting. Washington said the pause was intended to provide time for diplomatic efforts, because of course they did. Meanwhile, Burnham is meeting Vladimir Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy will become the first overseas leader received by Burnham since he entered number 10. And the meeting is taking place at a British naval base where the Ukrainian personnel have been involved in multinational marine training. Discussions will cover continued British military assistance and joint defence manufacturing. Meanwhile, we need to mention the wildfires in France and Spain. Absolutely insane levels of destruction caused by climate change. 100% caused by climate change. Did not happen when I was younger. This did not happen when you were younger. These fires have been absolutely off the charts, and there seems that it doesn't seem like they're going to end anytime soon. Meanwhile, in the southeast, we're not getting any rain. Vast areas of Britain are now turning brown. They haven't got enough rain. It's raining here on Loch Ness, but yeah, it's pissing down. But in the rest of the country, they're not so lucky. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any rain on the horizon for the foreseeable. So if your lawn isn't looking the best, it's not going to start looking the best anytime soon, by the looks of things. And it's because of climate change. Very important that we stress this. It's because of fire, because of wildfires, grasses and pine litter, that dries up, allowing fires to spread into deeper shrubs and roots and trees. And changing winds, of course, some fires to reverse direction. And this intense heat has created these kind of clouds that are capable of generating lightning, which means that there's more ignition points. I mean, just the whole thing is a cycle of doom happening across France and Spain at the moment, and hundreds of thousands of people have to be evacuated from their homes. People have lost their homes, and the damage to the economy of France and Spain is going to be insurmountable. Well, it's not going to be insurmountable, but it's going to be a fuckload. It's going to be billions and billions and billions. And that's why we keep making the point that it's actually cheaper to deal with climate change and go green and go for net zero than it is to deal with these disasters that we're going to keep coming, that are going to keep coming. And there is a very good chance that we might end up with, if we have some particularly rainy day, particularly windy days at the end of the month, going into next month in the start of August, then and another heat wave, we could see fires sweeping across the UK, especially in the southeast. David Faulkner, thank you very much for the 23 Hong Kong dollars. That is very kind of you. That's a super sticker, by the way. So super stickers don't count towards the super chat goal. It's really annoying. They totally should. So I will give the super lamb banana. Sorry, what's it called? The super bin man. The super account bin face before we leave. But before we get onto that, India's cockroach youth protest. The movement we're going to be doing a show about this, me and Pranay, on Thursday at 6:00. Please join us. We're going to be talking about what's been going down in India. Pranay obviously got the inside track on that. I mean, he's from India, so that helps. He's got family over there. He's got friends over there. He's been talking to people down on the ground. Essentially, there was a nationwide movement, and it forced Modi to sack his education minister. And he's never sacked anyone the whole time he's been there. He's never sacked anyone from his cabinet or from his his government, and this is the first time they've actually had to do this. Whereas the BJP, Modi's party, it does remain electorally dominant, but these protests showed that online movements previously central to its campaign can also sustain opposition movements for to knock him down a peg or two. Meanwhile, in Myanmar, former Burma, or stroke Burma, the conflict monitoring organisation ACLED says that Myanmar's armed forces have sharply intensified deliberate attacks on civilians, which is really fucking grim. The story of Burma since independence has been one of military junta after military junta after military junta, and that's really shit. And just before I go, and acknowledge the super chats in a moment, there's been a gunfire broke out at the Sunday evening during the Bite of Seattle festival. It was Seattle Food Festival, close to the Space Needle. 3 people were killed and 4 others were wounded. And this is the thing, like, if some nutter goes nuts with their car or goes nuts with a knife, yeah, they can kill people. They absolutely can. It happens, right? But nothing's as deadly as a gun. Nothing. If you've got a nutter who wants to take people out, give him a gun and he's going to take people out. I say he because it's always a he, isn't it? Bin face for the win, says Pretty Kate Machine. Thank you. I remain forever tax wealthy, not lovely workers. Yes, absolutely, Kimberly. Couldn't agree more. And that allows me to say 3, 2, 1. Bin Feffy! Bin, 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 bin. Bin Feffy. Yeah. Woo! Okay, so we got the Bin Feffy. We got there. Right, I'm not going to do the papers because I haven't got time, and plus, I don't want to raise people's blood pressure. There's shit going on in the world, as always, so we just ran through the headlines today. I'm going to try and do a show tonight. I'm not promising anything. I'm going to drive back to Durham and, get all my stuff together. I'll try and do a show tonight. I'll try and do an episode of Stateside with Scott at 9 o'clock, so look out for that. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Give us a like on the way out if you are subscribed. And also, if you're subscribed and you haven't hit the bell notification icon, hit that, because it's the summer holidays. I might be doing shows. I might not be. I don't have really, I'll do my best. But I'll definitely be back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock with another morning brew. We'll have a roundup of the day's news, told to you in a way that it hopefully isn't patronising and shit. I hope that's my endeavour, and is very trans inclusive, because we love our trans community here. And 150,000 trans party people in London yesterday for London Trans Pride. It's just fantastic. 150,000 people. And they all vote, and they've all got friends who vote, and they all, family who vote. Just saying, Labour, if you want to sort something out, it's going to be a quick and easy win. Back heel this stupid guidance before it comes in, and change the goddamn Equality Act so it says specifically that the definition of women includes trans women. Thank you. Cheers. Take care, everyone, and be kind to yourself and each other, says Diz. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Have a great day, whatever you're up to, and be safe, be sensible, have fun. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.